So the reason why I'm doing this today is that I was having a conversation with my mother over the weekend where she told me that she had a dream that aliens were going to come and save the world from Trump, that the saucer would land in her yard. And after that, they would come and solve all of the world's problems. And my mother has always been sort of on the crystal worshiping, sort of more flighty side of things, which is perhaps the reason why I talk so much about grifters and the scams of the world, because maybe I'm reacting a little bit to my mother. But it was interesting this weekend because instead of doing what I usually do, which is spend all of my time, listening to some sort of insane idea that she has, and then just trying to debunk her live on the phone, I just listened. I just listened to why she was thinking about the aliens, and it was it was really interesting because instead of immediately reacting, I started to understand that she feels so out of control right now, right? She's looking at Medicare and Social Security maybe being defunded under the Trump administration. She's a liberal who lives in Massachusetts. And she's worried about sort of everything going wrong. And she's looking for anything that she can to have control over her life. The other thing that she immediately said, she talked about aliens coming down, and then she also talked about how she's worried about her health and she needs different supplements to interact with her body in nice ways. And she gave me this whole long list of the things that she's taking right now, because she has a tremendous anxiety. And obviously those two things are related, right? She has tremendous anxiety because the world feels out of control. She feels it in her body and she wants to do something about it. And I think to some degree, all of us feel like this right now, or at least most of us. I mean, some people on the political right might feel that things are great. But if you look at the stock market right now, if you look at us leaving the treaties with Ukraine, we have this feeling like we have no control in the situation. And then I also started thinking about how I sometimes do the same thing that my mother does, just with different language and different actions. While I can say that my mother believing that aliens will come and save the day, which is legitimately a great thing if they did that, all of us would be like, sweet, aliens saved us. But what I do as sort of a rational liberal thinker is that I go onto the news and social media and I refresh my feeds constantly trying to find out what the real information is, when in reality, I have no control whatsoever on the way things move, on the way this universe all connects, and like, can we save our democracy? I don't think I have the power to do that. And yet, that is the activity that I do to make myself feel like I'm okay. So what I wanted to do today is to try to dissect some of these ideas, and I actually really want to hear from people in the chat with your questions and your thoughts, and maybe you can help me work through this because my literary agent wants me to write a book about the griftocracy, wants me to write about like the fundamental nature of scams, and I had this idea that maybe I would, take all of the videos from my YouTube channel and then, sort of dissect, try to find the common themes and put it all together. And it basically like a one big long YouTube video, but in literary form. And maybe people would like that. I think that might be a good idea. But on this channel, right now, you can help me think through what are the themes that connect everything, because we all feel out of control. And I think that maybe one of the themes, and I'm going to get to your questions really soon, but one of the themes that comes into my head is that when you meet somebody who tells you you can, like Grant Cardone, you can 10x your health or your wealth by following his grifty financial scams or wellness scams, or Andrew Huberman, who says, if you can just control your internal body, you're going to feel great. And the truth is that so much of this world, so much of our own health is out of control. You go to a doctor because you want to get better. You go to a doctor because you have these symptoms and you want to get better. And then most of the time, they can't fix those non-critical things. Like, sure, if you have a broken leg, they can fix that. But if you just have like brain fog or just don't feel like yourself anymore, the doctors often can't do anything if they can't directly diagnose the underlying issue. And this drives people in to the charlatans who say, well, yeah, you may not have a diagnosable, fixable condition, but I can give you something that will make you, will accentuate the placebo effect and make you feel better. Or at least make you have the hope of feeling better. And this made me realize that what scams all sell at the fundamental level is hope. And why is hope related to money? Like, what is the value of hope? And the grifters have sort of maximized that. They've maximized the ability to transform hope into dollars. But also, you and I, or anyone who falls for a scam, is willing to pay dollars for that hope. So that's where I am right now. I haven't figured out why we want to pay for hope, but it's clear that that at least the internet writ large, maybe not writ large, but the internet in like the social media landscape, hope is what people sell on their YouTube channels, on their live channels, when they're selling you supplements, finance ideas, whatever the grifty scam is. They're selling you the hope of fixing something. Okay, I'm going to look at some questions and some ideas in the chat, and maybe you got some ideas. Just listen to the Let Them Theory by Mel Robbins. I have not actually looked at that show yet by Mel Robbins. I have no opinion on her. But people are saying in the chat that they also feel like they're out of control. Kai Dark Knight said just that. And interestingly enough, someone asked if Kai Dark Knight was Kai Dickens, and I actually don't think that Kai Dark Knight is Kai Dickens. I sent Kai Dickens a note recently. Now, Kai Dickens, for those of you who aren't aware, is the author, the journalist behind this telepathy tapes. And the telepathy tapes is the idea that you have all these autistic kids out there who are actually super able and communicate telepathically with one another and with their handlers in various ways. And I did a whole video about that on my back channel, which you should check out. And when you listen to the podcast, it's actually super convincing. Like, if you don't have any critical take on it, you just listen to the evidence of the podcast, it sort of makes you feel like, hey, maybe these kids are super abled after all. And maybe there is something here which is worth understanding better. And then you start digging a little bit more, and a lot of the secondary literature on the telepathy tape says it's probably mostly already been debunked before it even came out. I don't know. I think it deserves a little bit more investigation. I'm going to read the next comment. It is democracy that needs saving when the system is hijacked so easily by special interest. Hey, Nut Prescott, I 100% agree with you on this. Money and politics are so interlinked right now. It almost feels like our government is for sale so unbelievably blatantly, not only with like Trump starting a meme coin, which is basically a legal venue to bribe Donald Trump. But it's been going this way since at least Nixon, right? Maybe since, I don't know, Coolidge. Coolidge was in the 1920s, I think. That where money is increasingly come into politics, buying campaigns. Right now, you see an unelected gentleman named Elon Musk threatening members of Congress that he's going to fund the opposition to them to kick them out of office if they don't get in line to vote for his policies, even though he's a completely unelected billionaire. This is like the dystopian horror show that is making my mother hope that aliens save us. Right? It is this horrible situation where democracy is in so much trouble. And, I tweeted earlier today that under Trump, I feel like we're getting close to enough dissent that we could end up towards a revolution. Now, I've worked in war zones before. I've been in areas where there actually have been revolutions. And a lot of Americans talk about revolution as if they know what will happen. I will promise you, revolution is a terrible thing to live through. But it doesn't mean that it couldn't happen. We have an armed populace. We have angry people. We had Luigi Mangione killing the CEO of, like, allegedly killing the CEO of United Healthcare. One of the journalists over at InfoWars was shot yesterday. Interestingly enough, another healthcare executive was stalked, not shot, about 3 days ago. I think this was in Minnesota. I saw this on Taylor Lorenz's channel. It feels to me that we might be ending up in a situation where people feel so little control that instead of going towards believing in aliens will save us, some people will take direct action, right? We can be certainly moving in a direction where people are like, oh my God, the only thing I can do is shoot someone. And it's a bad outcome. No one wins in a revolution. But we could absolutely be going there. And if the revolution happens, and if the revolution wins, okay, two crazy ideas, what sort of democracy would we like? Because I think that even before Trump, most of us could agree that the American government is horribly unrepresentative. It is a situation where, the Senate, it overrepresents these states with no people in it who control the conversation at the legislative level so that policies can't get pushed through. We need like a whole new idea of government because our Constitution was made 250 years ago and it's a little bit outdated. It needs some new, fresh ideas in it that will make a government work in a modern context. And people say that both parties are part of this, and they, somebody wrote here that both people have forgotten what limited government means. That's one critique of the government. But I think it really, the problem, at least in my perspective, is that most people don't feel like before Trump, it felt like the government couldn't change. Like everything was stagnant all the time. And under Trump, it feels like it's changing so fast under madman policies that the change is horrible. And I don't know if the founders wanted just a very stagnant government that maybe that was their plan, a government that didn't really work really well, but was somewhat benevolent versus where we're going. Man, we're on a roller coaster. We're on the wild ride, and we do not know how this is all gonna pan out. I don't know how we're gonna fix it. I would like to say that in the future, I would like a government where money doesn't control everything. Maybe a country where billionaires aren't in control, where we don't have too much power at the top. And yet I also want to have an efficient government that fixes the problems. I don't see how that's going to happen. I'm going to read the next comment. So many scams play on emotions and fear. This is absolutely true. This is probably a great time to have a scam, right? It's a great moment right now to run a scam because all of us feel out of control. And if you come up with some solution to this, like subscribing to Scott Carney's newsletter or whatever, maybe you can maybe this is an opportunity. I mean, and I think in my video on the griftocracy, I think it's called the Exposing America's Great Pyramid Scheme or something like that. What I noticed is that there's so many people who have been involved in like pyramid scams before who are now literally in power. And I'm talking about RFK but to some degree also, I mean, to a greater degree also Trump. You see this conjoining of scam logic and government. And I think in the past, scams used to work because we had a stable space, right? If you have a stable government and the overall architecture is okay, you can have these scams sneak in and run crazy get rich quick schemes. But because the government is overall stable, it doesn't destabilize everything. Like when the scam comes crashing down, it's just those scammers who are involved and the people involved in the scams. But now, if scammers actually run the government, what happens when it crashes? And are we seeing it happen right now? The stock market currently down, what is it, 6%? I looked at my stocks the other day, 2 days ago, and over 1 year, I am down 4%. From a month ago, I'm down like 20%. Oh my God, I have a new member, Z King. Z King, you just joined the elite. Thank you for your $5. You've joined the elite, and I'm going to answer your question. What do you think of the Trump administration working to establish the crypto reserve? Feels sketchy considering that Trump wants to do with a consumer financial protection board. This is a fantastic question. I would have answered this even if you didn't pay, but thank you so much for the $5. When I heard about the crypto reserve, I was immediately skeptical. And the reason for that is that right now, America has hegemony in the world. Like right now, America uses the dollar, and the dollar is the reserve currency of the planet. Okay, which means that, and primarily you become the reserve currency because that's how trade happens. Like people use dollars. Like I'll use an example. Maybe France and China, if they're going to buy oil, that oil has to be done in dollars, and reserve currency is usually related to oil and energy transfer. But the dollar is like hugely important. People put their money in dollars because the dollar is stable. And America has had this advantage since about World War II, after World War II, where the dollar was the primary currency that trade happened in. And so what it seems to me is that Trump is actually trying to weaken the dollar's ability to be that reserve central currency. And it is such an advantage for us to have the dollar as the way that trade happens, because as an American, or as American, the Treasury has the ability to just create more dollars by, I don't know, printing them, or you don't even print them right now. You just change some code in the computer and boom, you have more dollars. And so that ability of America to control global trade and be the sort of the I want to say the structure, I'm missing the word here, to be the lattice on which global trade runs, we should be doing, from an America first policy, we should be doing everything we can to have the dollar be the reserve currency of the world. We should be saying no to cryptocurrency. Unfortunately, it seems to me that cryptocurrency has been used as a way to skirt our own financial regulations. Like America is working against its own interests to use crypto as a reserve currency in order to what looks to be personally benefit crypto people who donated a tremendous amount of money to the presidential campaigns. And I don't have the figures in front of me right now. But when I looked this up like 2 months ago, it looked like the crypto people had donated billions of dollars to the presidential campaigns. And someone actually could look this up in the chat, and you can send me the link and I'll look at the link. But crypto people were huge donors. And Trump was actually a keynote speaker at a crypto conference. Russell Brand was there, of all people. Russell Brand, who went completely MAGA, of course. And then also you see the destruction of the Consumer Finance Protection Board, which is the second part of your question. And this is just so terrible. It's funny. I'm on a what do you call it, a signal chat with some members of the CFPB, who was like I went to high school with, and now we chat about like the horror show. And he remembers he was telling me about how all of these Doge officials came in and immediately nuked the YouTube channel. So if you go to the YouTube channel of the CFPB, all their last 15, I don't know, is it 15 years of YouTube videos were immediately destroyed, all these professional things. And the CFPB is like literally the organization responsible for detecting scams and holding people to account for scamming. And it's I want to say it's hilarious. It's not hilarious. It's so sad that the first thing that they do is try to undo the regulations that protect you from scammers. This administration is infuriating, and probably all of my chat is pretty infuriated, or they're writing evil comments about how I have Donald Trump. What do you call it? Donald Trump. DJT, the syndrome of a liberal who cannot see that Trump could do anything good. Or you could just look at reality and see that the stock market is tanking. Okay, so just became a $9 member. Just so you know that is a $9 member of this channel, and I just want to thank you. I've seen your username come up in the comments over and over again, and I appreciate you following this channel. But you didn't ask a question, so I'm not going to answer it. Oh, wait. Yeah, you didn't ask a question, so I can't answer. But if you ask me a question, I will answer it the next time you put it down there. David Kudar actually made an interesting point here. He said it's fast food in the algorithm that we're kept distracted as we lose all agency. What I find interesting about that comment is something that I've talked about on this channel before, is that social media, I'm not a social media star, but I have a certain presence and a few people who are interested in me. And I post on social media a lot, and my posts get likes occasionally. And I feel when I do that, that I am making a difference. Like people liked and they commented, and then somehow the government is going to change. Maybe if you get enough likes, the alien spacecraft comes down and saves us all. I don't know how it works, but I have this sensation, like literally, and I say sensation, like I literally feel it to some degree, that little dopamine hit when I post an interesting idea and people like it. Thousands of people interact with my content, and then the world got better. But it doesn't work like that, does it? I think that point Kudar is making here is that social media is actually sort of the back eddy and the cesspool of attention where we go into it and nothing happens. Like it's a great way to distract the populace and make us feel like we're doing something instead of actually doing something in the world. Like Luigi Mangione. And I think the most, I'll just leave that there. I think the most important thing, the most revolutionary thing that anyone can do right now is actually to go have conversations offline and with your neighbors. Because while we're spending so much time on the internet creating our liked profiles and all of the things that become, our digital avatars, we are not going out and actually making friends and joining clubs and doing all the things that I used to do in the 90s when I was a teenager. And did I make it to my 20s? No, I didn't. When I was a teenager, no, I did make it to my 20s. Yeah, I was still in my 20s in the late 90s. And like there was this back then, there was no internet or internet profile where this was the primary action. What you do is you go out and you talk with people. It would be totally awkward, but then you'd actually know people in a way that was realer and multifaceted. And then also what happens online is that if you become too political, you're being tracked by the government. Like Palantir, which is the evil Google, which was actually funded by Google initially, they're tracking everything you do. Like AI right now is taking the transcript of this video, and it's probably not being flagged, but it could be flagged by security services. If you want to actually make change, you can't do it online. The revolution will not be broadcast. The revolution, should it happen, is going to happen in back rooms. It's going to happen with neighbors. So when I say that if you want to be a revolutionary and you want to actually try to solve things, it's about meeting people and having conversations. And we're so far behind the 8 ball on this that you should start right now. Like go delivering cookies to your neighbors. It will be a lot more effective at the beginnings of political change than anything that happens here on the internet. The other thing that you could do, I went on Reddit recently, and I found this organization. There's like a subreddit called the Iron Front. You should go check it out. It's probably the r/Iron Front. And the reason I ended up there is because I posted on Threads that I think that liberals should learn to use guns and we should buy more guns. And I posted that, and then eventually some people wrote to me and they said, well, one, the thread blew up because a lot of liberals said we are armed already. Like thousands of people told me that they were already armed. And then I was like, shit, I guess I got to go learn how to shoot a gun. And I did. I went out and I hooked up with basically a member of Antifa, ex-Marine, now shooting instructor at a local shooting parlor, and I learned to shoot a pistol. And by the way, if anyone ever is in a gunfight with me, you're safe. I'm a terrible shot. I should not be on the front lines of any military movement. But one thing that I wanted the reason why I was interested in guns is not because I think that we can win a revolution by shooting the other side. Like, who do you shoot anyway? Like, not people with red hats. That's too many of them. The reason why I picked up a firearm and learned to shoot it is because over the last for 30 years, since the NRA really blew up, the right wing has really used guns as an effective way to organize. They've effectively come together and said, look, we've got guns and we are here and we're dangerous and you can't mess with us. And it got to such a point that gun nuts took over a national wildlife refuge in Idaho, a guy named Eamon Bundy, and they all these like sort of Tea Party-esque folks took over a wildlife refuge, and the FBI and the ATF came in and they said, you can't take over you can't take back the wildlife refuge. And the ATF and the FBI basically left. And it strikes me that when you have a gun, the government is going to be scared of starting an actual firefight, and it becomes a sort of political power that even if no one gets shot, it is useful. And I also realize that we've lost the gun rights fight, right? The Second Amendment exists to preserve the First Amendment, right? The Second Amendment, the First Amendment is free speech, free organization, free all this other stuff. And then the Second Amendment is like, and you need a well-regulated militia to ensure all that. So it's right there in the Constitution. You need an armed populace. And then, even though I sort of am scared of guns, and even the first time I shot that pistol, I almost cried because I'm a freaking gun wimp when it comes down to it. But nonetheless, we have no ability to regulate them anymore. The Supreme Court has basically said anyone can have any type of firearm. And then another thing I want to say about that is that as a symbol, guns are actually pretty useful. If I'm a gun owner, you're going to be a little more scared about jumping into my house and whatever, but it's not actually going to be useful for a war. If you're looking at what's happening in Ukraine right now, the people aren't dying from gunshot wounds. They're dying from bombs being dropped from drones. And I don't think those are currently available in my gun stores locally. Like the next war that happens is all going to be all the death is going to be dropped from the sky. So guns in like as a tool to change government, it's irrelevant probably in the future. But as a symbol, it can be a very, very effective talking point. Whew. All right. There's my gun rant. On to the next question. Maybe Anonymous is going to save us Americans. Anonymous was like 8 hackers who had some pretty decent YouTube videos that went popular, and they did a couple minor hacks that got people interested, releasing information. They did some child predator stuff. They went after the Church of Scientology. I don't think there's enough of Anonymous to actually do things. They say that they wear the Guy Fawkes mask, and they say they are Legion, but they're not. They're basically like a subreddit of low-end hackers. Some of them are probably pretty good. Some of them are probably pretty good hackers, but they're not going to save the world. That's actually, looking at Anonymous to save the world is a lot like looking at aliens coming in and saving the day. Some faceless group who can actually save us. Z King. I'm a gun-toting, left-leaning guy. Never understood the stereotype. We hate guns, LOL. So many Americans in general own guns. You are absolutely right. Wait. Rom Weaver said they hacked X yesterday. I knew that X went down because there are tweets about it. Are you sure that it was Anonymous who took it down? Was there a credit that they gave saying that it was Anonymous, that particular hacking organization that took down X? If so, I'd like to shake their hands. And in fact, what can I say legally on this channel? There's been a recent spate of direct actions against Tesla-owned properties, where you see Tesla stores and swastikars, like Model Ts and Model Xs and Cybertrucks that have been vandalized. And I want to say, well, shooting people in a revolution is a really bad idea. I personally feel that those people who have vandalized a bunch of Tesla things are making a wonderful symbolic action that I would never personally participate in. I would never key a Tesla. I would never pop its tires. I would never do other things to be sure Tesla cars no longer operate. But I do think that as a symbol and symbolic show of resistance, I mean, they're wide open targets. So there's Tesla cars and Tesla organizations everywhere. And the guy who runs Tesla is sort of a dick who is unjustly taken over the country. And I think he probably doesn't like it when you post later that a Tesla truck has been damaged. So yeah, there's so much I can't say, but I do enjoy the fact that that occurs. I like those posts when they show up in my Threads feed. I like those posts when they come up. Okay, so those were actually all the questions that have shown up in my live chat. And to go back to scams for a moment, one of the things that I want to do in this book, if I write this book, is that I could write a book about the anatomy of the scams, the things that link everything together. I could go back to like the history of wartime propaganda. I could look at sort of our American dream and this, what I call the cult of relentless optimism and certain tactics that make scams work and blah, 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 blah. Show you exactly how scams work and why you are caught up by them. But I'm not sure that people want to read that book. Like, I mean, some people might want to read that book, but the reason scams work is because they offer hope, right? Is the reason you fall for a scam is because you want to get healthier, get richer, get better educated, become better for doing that. And I'm wondering if there's a way to flip the script on my anti-scam book to sell the idea of hope through understanding how scams work. You see what I mean here? Like, how could I make a book about debunking scams in a way that makes scamming, like that awareness of scamming makes you a better person? How do I do 10% happier for awareness of scams? And that's where I've been stuck in like writer's block mode all day, trying to figure that out. I haven't cracked it, but it might have something to do with my mother not understanding that aliens aren't coming to get her. It might have something to do with the placebo effect. It might have something to do with the idea that hope is useful, but unrealistic hope is a sure way to collapse. We have another paid subscriber, my friends, a guy named Behavioral, or could be a woman, Behavioral Logic, just gave me $5, which is pretty funny because I think I've made like $15 now, $20. I've made $20 on this stream, which is pretty freaking great. I got my first super on my live stream. I can celebrate it. It says it's cueing me to celebrate it. But I'm going to try to answer this question. When boomers grew up, they did not need to critically assess information. They accepted it from authoritative source. Think Cronkite. Actually, this is fascinating because it's a topic that I think about a lot from a different perspective, which is that we had a centralized media distribution infrastructure under the boomers. And the boomers, the boomers were the generation that was born right after World War II. All these sold GIs came back and they immediately had families. And then we had this big sort of mushroom demographic that came into America. And it came out of an era where you trusted the government because the government just won a war against the Nazis, which is a great thing to do. It's great to win wars against Nazis. And then we also had the owners of these syndication networks, whether it was originally terrestrial broadcast over radio, and then in black and white TV, and then color TV. We're in the 80s. 80s? No, color TV was before the 80s, 70s. And there were some problems with centralized distribution. One of the problems being that it was owned by the billionaires, right? It was the I don't know who owned ABC in the 50s, but it was some really rich guy who could own a lot of terrestrial transmitters and have government contracts to send those radio signals out on the spectrum, like these very rich people controlled that. And there was also a lot of money in advertising. They learned that you could put ads in like a news program or a syndicated TV show, and you could then use that to sell awareness of a product and then directly sell products. And when the boomers were, that generation was going, it was all very centralized and that meant and usually backed up by the government. At that time, the government actually had a heavier hand in the sorts of information that could be terrestrially broadcast. They had a whole commission looking at content that went out. And the good side of that is that those standards did lead to some good journalism and some good practices, such as routine fact checking. When I worked for the mainstream media, and I was with Wired, I was with Mother Jones, I was with National Public Radio, and like Playboy was the best, and a few other publications. Oh yeah, Rockefeller. Yeah, it was Rockefeller had a big part of that. Owned one of those, 30 Rock, whatever, is that CBS? 30 Rock, that was a Rockefeller. When you had those centralized distribution networks, you had the resources of doing great journalism. And you had this sort of ethic this camaraderie among journalists that we were out there telling the truth. And that was really luxurious. And you could get paid like a decent living salary for being a journalist. With the destruction of the media into social media phase, we now all have to critically assess information, right? We actually have to learn critical assessment because no one else is doing it for us. And a lot of us just don't have those skills. Some of that reason is because like literally the educational system has been destroyed to take away those skills. And on the other side, you also see that we just are not ready in general as a person we look at like someone with a lot of followers and we think that because you have a lot of followers, you must be giving us good information, which is of course complete and utter bullshit. And so I think that the current generation is having a really, really hard time as viewers understanding what is good. And as someone who produces and who comes from that mainstream background, I'm trying to like figure out how to exist on social media and do things at the quality standards that I was able to do when I was with the mainstream media. And I will tell you, it is an incredible struggle for me to do that. Because I don't really take sponsors. I think I would take a sponsor, but it's very hard to find a sponsor that aligns with my values. And where I used to get paid $3 to $5 a word, now I'll put out a YouTube video that takes me a month and it gets like 100 views. It gets like 20,000 views, and 20,000 views is worth $200. I don't know how I'm going to survive in the long run. So that's depressing. All right. Coloradical, Ali Cattails. Appreciate your efforts and the results of your work. I was a media studies major. I was a media studies major, and you inspire me to work on my ideas. Heard of 1,000K true fans. Thank you. Ali Cattails, I hope you're still in Colorado. I hope you are you're pursuing journalism here. And I will tell you that we are trying to create a meetup group for journalists at the Denver Press Club. And we're going to meet like on Wednesdays in person. I know that's revolutionary. We're going to meet in person at the Colorado Press Club. So if you're still a journalist or aspiring journalist, maybe there's ways to collaborate. And that 1,000 true fans thing, you're absolutely right. And that's what I'm trying to build. I have like, I think I have like 100,000, no, I have more than, I have like 115,000 subscribers on this channel, in the YouTube channel. But like really where the support comes from is ultimately Substack, because although I think I technically make more money on YouTube, and I'm releasing a video about how my finances work in a few days, on Friday. I think I'm gonna make it public, but like Substack is actually where I want to be, because if I had 1,000 true fans, let's say paying subscribers, paying $8 a month, which I admit That's a lot of money for a random Substack, but that's what I need, right? If I had 1,000 people there paying me $8 a month, after all the cuts that Substack takes out, I would be making about $5,000 a month, like steady income. Where it would be like every, I would know I would wake up and next month I would make $5,000 and on and on. And that's like $60,000 a year. And I'm like, between that and like the royalties I get off my books, I think I could just do this forever with no trouble. And that would be cool. So I think you're right. 1,000 true fans is what would work for me. And sort of also hidden under what you're saying is that in the past, and this is going to go back to behavioral logic's question as well. In the past, when you, as a journalist, I would go on other people's platforms. I would be on Wired, I would be on NPR, Playboy, whoever, and I would know that I would get out to millions of people by going on someone else's platform. And that would be cool. And then you get all the prestige and whatever that goes with that. But in the modern world, going out to like wide is actually not valuable, right? Having a video that gets 100,000 views, that doesn't really make you that much money. And what's more important is to go and do very niche work for like a small group of people. Like, if I had a fly fishing channel, just serving that tiny segment of fly fishermen, that actually might be more lucrative than what I do here. I think I'm missing a point. I was trying to connect 2 points there. I don't think I connected it. I'm sorry. David Kudar just became a $5 member now, though. So that, I think that brings me up to $25 for this meeting. And so thank you so much, David. I really appreciate it. Okay, we have Z King. Hi. Awesome. Wait, am I missing something here? Okay, Nut Prescott says that violence against Teslas will only escalate things. I mean, yeah, should things not be escalated? Good question. Good question. Scott, it's bad of you to attack Huberman. He has helped millions. Do you guys think I should talk about this? Do you think I should weigh in on whether it's nice of me to attack Huberman? Someone type in the chat whether I should address this question. No one there yet. Roram Weaverar thinks I should talk about it. Does anyone else think I should talk about Huberman and why it's important for me to write about him and talk about him? Address the question. Okay. Huberman hot take. All right. Let's do a Huberman take. Huberman. Okay. Is it bad of me to talk about Huberman? So Huberman, as the people on this channel should know, or probably already know, is that I was somewhat friends with Andrew back in like 2017, 2018, maybe 2019. This was before he was famous. I wrote my book. This book, What Doesn't Kill Us, New York Times bestseller, great book about ice bathing. And we had a lot of really interesting chats about the nature of the placebo effect, his research on fear, where he would have people put virtual reality goggles on, and then you would swim in virtual shark tanks to get over your fears of sharks and things, and we had like a couple really good interactions. And I also saw parts of his personality that were very narcissistic, very I'm not going to go into all of it, but like it's like sort of his own personality has these very negative, very attention seeking sides to himself. And I was sort of like, I saw his rise and I was actually really surprised at how popular he got. Because when I knew him, he had like 1,000 followers on Instagram and was basically unknown. And then a few years later, he was on Rogan and he absolutely has exploded to the guy he is today. And I think there's two problems with Huberman. One, before I talk about his problems, let me talk about the good things about him. That's fair, right? The good things about Huberman is that he was making science accessible. He empowered people to think scientifically about things. And, at first he was talking about a very narrow band of subjects that were in his neuroscience expertise. And I think early Huberman was sort of interesting, but he was always also searching for more and more attention. And as he became more popular, his area of expertise seemed to grow and grow and grow into things that he was absolutely not an expert on. Again, his research is on the optic nerve, the transfer of information from light beams to your brainstem, and he's really good at that. However, as he expanded his knowledge base, he started expressing opinions on things that he has like no factual basis to understand. And where I started to understand that he had made errors was when he started talking about ice bathing, which just happens to be the thing that I was known for many years. Like I'm not a cold biologist, but I do have a degree in medical anthropology, and I know something about ice bathing. And he said the most freaking bizarre shit about ice bathing that I had ever heard. That you should get into an ice bath and you should shiver as much as you can to lose all the weight you can. And there's like basically not like no one would do this who knows anything about ice bathing. At the time I met him, he had never even done an ice bath. He was just ice bath curious. And I feel like he often comes out and says things that are not based on science. And while I do think that to some degree Huberman can be helpful to people, I think probably about 80% of the stuff that he says is probably pretty reasonable science. He gets out ahead of what he is able to actually promise. And now he's doing things like just the other day, I saw that he took credit for a whole new brain state called NSD, non-sleep deep REM, non-sleep deep rest, NSDR, which is basically yoga nidra. And he basically says he invented a brain state. The guy has an ego which is so big and so excessive that by watching him and by putting him on a pillar, you make him less and less credible. And he's also really bad to women. It's just obvious he's really, really bad to women. And I sort of think that people who treat people around them in bad ways and are known for lying and known for coercion, that we shouldn't expect that their public persona, that stuff won't drift into the public persona. So that's a hot take on Huberman. I've done more videos on it. I've been more articulate in at least one of them. If you really want to do like a deep dive on why I think Huberman is a problem, look at the one where I'm talking about his Roca glasses and why he's paid to lie. That's a better reported piece where I talk about the horror show that is sponsorship deals and then how his medical opinion on things like blue blocking glasses has changed with a sponsorship deal. And that is just doesn't do a service to you. That's just him selling products. That's not actual science. Okay. Violence against Teslas will only escalate things. Scott's bad of you, Tech Huber, and I've already answered these. Oh my God, you guys have answered so much. People, so I'm going to actually answer Alley Cattails. People aren't all good or bad. Our icons and idols can disappoint us, even more so with influencers and access, even more parasocially. And I think that this is something that I've tried to accentuate in my videos, is that I think that there's a lot of good things about Huberman. I started by talking about good things with Huberman. I wrote a book about Wim Hof and why I think that he's a fantastic person in so many ways, and he's getting people killed. We need to be able to inhabit the gray areas on things where we can take the good things. Like I'm still a daily ice bather and breathwork person, but the guy who introduced it to me has really gone off the rails. And I think it's okay to be able to inhabit those two spaces. And we shouldn't be elevating people to places where they are become infallible and isolated. Tiffany Ray just became an investigator. I do have to say that I need to leave here in 12 minutes because I have a doctor's appointment that was scheduled today. And I need to go and get something checked out that is bugging me. So I'll be out of here in 12 minutes. So someone claimed that Z King claims that he is Wim Hof. Oh man, he's not Wim Hof. But I think he is a member of my channel now. Inot Visan Inaut, Ionut Visan. Huberman was accused of having 5 lovers while undergoing IVF with a girlfriend. And yeah, that's just one of the many accusations against Andrew, which are problematic. Like, he's courting a girlfriend, trying to have a kid with her, literally on like camping trips, and she's taking like injections while he's like sexting some other women. This is like if you were in a relationship with a man like that, you'd be like, that guy's a douchebag, and I don't think people should be friendly with him. And this is an issue. Alfonso Bonzo says, no, he's bad to trash women who want him for clout. I would say that what you're sort of victim blaming here by saying that the women who are after him were trying to get famous or something because he was famous. But the women that I know who were dating him long before he was famous. We're talking 2017, 2018. And I knew a lot of these women who were around him at that time who were not chasing him because he was on Joe Rogan. They were chasing because he was like a studly looking, jacked scientist guy. They were not in it for the money. I mean, I don't think they were in it for the money. And I think that if we just knee jerk and we blame the women for him, we're just defending him without any evidence. We're just, because we like his presentation. And just because we like someone doesn't mean that they are a good person. Like, how many gurus have we seen in the world who are so likable and so charismatic and so nice and whatever that ultimately turned out to be horrible people? Shanaz Tali, appreciate your work so much. Feel bad for not having money to support. Dude, it's okay. If you don't have money, it's 100% okay. No one has money. It's a terrible time. The market just crashed. So I'm not surprised that we don't have money right now. Nut Prescott, if you found out that Karl Marx was a narcissist, it wouldn't, this is a good view, right? If you found out that Karl Marx was a narcissist, would it change your political views that were derived from him? One, I don't think Karl Marx ever really created a systematic view of government. He just made a critique of government. But, I used to like Karl Marx a lot. I read a lot of Marx in college. And I think that we can separate, but the root of that question is, can you separate the artist from the art? And, like, for instance, is House of Cards a bad show because Kevin Spacey is a douchebag? And I struggle with this. In general, I think the art is okay. If the guy is, even if the person's a douchebag, that's sort of where I've landed, because lots of people have been douchebags in history. But my point with Huberman is that if he's a known liar, a cheater, and a grifter, and he's selling you ideas on science based on a business model that encourages lying and cheating and grifting, why do you think that you're not being grifted? Like, if you have a history of running scams and being called out for lies, then why would you trust the lies that he is directly presenting you in a nonfiction context? Now, as for Marx, I don't really need to address Marx in particular. Alexander the Great, was he great, or did he do genocide? I don't know. It's not really applicable in this. It doesn't really matter. But Huberman is he's giving you health information. And if he is getting paid to give you health information, which is maybe not beneficial to you, then you should be aware of that. It's the same critique that we have against pharmaceutical companies being in it for profit. And they're like, those pharmaceutical companies are being so profitable. They just want to keep you sick. Well, it's the same thing for Huberman. It's the same thing for I just hit my YouTube award, my precious YouTube award that I just got. But it's the same thing for all of these pharmaceutical industries and the big money players. If you think that Huberman is not being influenced by money and power, then you are just wrong. You're missing the critique, and that goes back to Marx. It's all about capital. 7 more minutes. Are you familiar with the now semi-political streamer Destiny? Some major allegations just broke to greater public earlier this year. Civil litigation underway. I'm sorry, I don't know. I've never heard of Destiny. No idea. Sorry. Wish I did. You're like women don't do the same with men. He always just keeping his opinions open. Women always keeping their options open. I don't know. Alfonso Bonzo, that just sounds like some misogynistic bullshit to me. Like you're like women be bitches. Is that basically what you're saying? I mean, you just like sort of undermined everything that you said before. Oh man. You're undermining everything you said before on that you're trying to be a reasoned argument when you're like women are horrible. Well, if you're just a misogynistic asshole and you're spewing that here, then why should your critiques ever be taken seriously? I'm sorry, Alfonso. That's it. That's all I got to say. Ooh, Ali Cattle's just subscribed on Patreon. If you are subscribing, my friends, please subscribe on Substack. I prefer Substack. You can be on Patreon. Patreon's great. Patreon's fine. But it's easier for my life if you're on Substack because I'm trying to move everything over there. Lawrence Samaran Ayake really enjoyed House of Cards. I really liked it too. I really liked House of Cards. Does that make me a bad person? It doesn't. House of Cards was good. It should not have been canceled. Yeah, okay. Yeah, that's it. No, women are not horrible. Good, Alfonso Bonzo. I'm glad that you said that women are not horrible. You've changed your thing, but like when you say women always keep their options open, you're painting a broad, you're painting a whole gender with a very broad stroke, and women are not always out there trying to take advantage of men. That's just not true. Women can be great people. I am married to a woman. I like women a lot. In general, I like women more than men because they don't have that macho bullshit going on with them. I also like men though, but I never said that, but they are much more ruthless in mating. Dude, you're doubling down on bullshit. You're doubling down on misogyny, and that's not cool. Like we should be in a world where being a misogynist is not awesome. Women are not all the same. You sound like an incel here, and I'm sorry. Or maybe you're a troll. Joe Lagrassi says you might be a troll. Anyway, Alfonso, I would recommend you being quiet here because I have the block button. Honorable Audio says, I've been married 14 years and my opinions haven't been open. And she's a woman. So apparently Honorable Audio is a woman, and I believe her. And she's not always trying to play the field. Yeah. Oh my God. All right. Well, I'm not gonna respond to Alfonso Bonzo. He's a dick, apparently. I have 3 minutes left, and I'm going to look at this last thing, and then I'm going to have to go and go to my doctor's appointment. I think the root of the problems with gurus, politicians, billionaires, and grifters is that they love power over others and love to abuse it. Rorim Weaverar. And I agree. I think that ultimately power is one of the fundamental problems in the world. In fact, earlier, someone asked me about my opinion about Marx, but I believe that Foucault is a better theorist at the moment because Foucault was looking at power. And at the end of the day, this endless accumulation and this personal drive for more power, more money, more everything, that dopamine drive to always grow, it is the problem. And there's also a problem with our political system where it gives advantages to people. Like the only people who rise in our political system are the people who are the narcissistic assholes who love attention and love money, right? Those are the people who get promoted. And I would love to be in a system where you're promoted on different virtues. But the problem with running for elections is that, or becoming a dictator, is that you have to be able to endure all the insults and all of that to get more and more power. Tiffany Ray, I just joined through YouTube, not realizing you prefer Substack. How do I switch? Tiffany, I don't know. I really don't know. I will say that you can just go to Substack and subscribe there. I think on your browser is the better way to do it. And you can cancel your YouTube membership subscribers. I would say that in general, the YouTube memberships are probably the worst tier to support me. One, because YouTube takes a big cut, but also because I just don't give the same newsletters and like perks to people on the YouTube algorithm because they don't have like a newsletter service. So you get less information. So it's just a worse deal. Although you do get to look green and show up cool in the chat, so it's not the end of the world either. Either way, I hope to survive in this world of journalism. I have 1 minute left, so all I want to tell all of you is it really means a lot to me that you come here and that you bother listening to me at all, because you know, I'm not always right about everything. I make errors, and I think that the people who have followed me understands that I'm a person doing my best, and I know that almost all of you are trying to do your best, except for anyone who I might call an incel. Who's obviously not trying very hard. Uh, and yeah, thank you. I'm out for now. And if you really do like live streams, let me know down in the comments, because this is sort of fun and it's pretty easy for me to produce. And I don't have to do like the 2 months of work that it takes me to usually do live streams. Oh, wow. And thank you. And I'm going to go block Alfonso Bonzo. You may not, Alfonso, you're now hidden from the channel. So I'll never see any of your comments again. Bon voyage. Bye, Alfonso. And thank you to everyone else. It really meant a lot. Take care. Bye.